it's not so important what people think when you come in. It's much more important what people think when you leave.
The man I'm about to talk about is known for many things. Success, heartbreak, laughter, excitement, uniqueness, passion, togetherness. And with this chapter in both his and Liverpool's stories drawing to a close, what will the world truly think about Jurgen Klopp?
Brendan Rodgers has left Liverpool. Brendan Rodgers is no longer the Liverpool manager.
October the 4th, 2015. Brendan Rodgers was officially let go from his duties at Liverpool Football Club, and at the time this felt necessary, but what was coming felt impossible. At the time, it wasn't a question of who Liverpool could get and which managers were available. It was a question of one thing, and one thing only. Could they convince Klopp? Well, that question was answered after only 4 days of waiting. 4 days that must have felt like 4 months. Such was the anticipation, the eagerness and the yearning for Klopp by Liverpool fans. And Klopp's first press conference, in which he articulated his feelings through his charisma and positivity, it felt infectious. And it was something for Liverpool fans to truly lean on in what had been a period of real disappointment and mediocrity. But the most important part of that press conference were his promises. Please give us time to do the work, but when I sit here in 4 years, I think we may have one title. In the season prior to Klopp's arrival, Liverpool look devastating in attack whilst utterly toothless at the back. And in 2014-15, they conceded a total of 48 goals, and even during their title-challenging year in 13-14, they conceded 50. And when you look at the team that he inherited, you begin to see the problems. This was Klopp's first ever lineup. The preferred centre-back partnership was Sakho and Skrtel, which was always below par when you looked across to the competitors. This was also only a few months after Raheem Sterling had left to join eventual rivals Manchester City. And it was also the summer that Steven Gerrard left, a talismanic figure for a club that has always had heroes on the pitch. But who was brought in to fill those huge gaps? Christian Benteke, Nathaniel Klein, Danny Ings, they were all brought in by Brendan Rodgers. Whilst they would eventually struggle to have the desired impact, there was one player signed in this window that would unlock Klopp's whole style of play: Roberto Firmino. Klopp's first season was an improvement, but still a disappointment. The 4-1 win over Manchester City at the Etihad was a gigantic moment for the team as they started to build the narrative that Klopp was about to take his team to glory. And the Brendan Rodgers signing of Roberto Firmino spearheaded that famous win. Despite this, there were also some questionable moments shortly after, the West Brom 2-2 celebrations being one of them. And despite this being a stick to beat Klopp and Liverpool with by rival fans, it showed the camaraderie between the players and the fans, but more importantly, the bond that was building between Klopp and those fans. And the bond between the fans and Klopp was strengthened even further when Liverpool reached the Europa League final. It felt almost guaranteed that Klopp's tenure would start with a vital trophy win and, just as importantly I guess, Champions League qualification against all odds. Defeat. Losing to Sevilla meant two things. No Champions League qualification, with Liverpool finishing 8th in the league, but also it brought up some old but all too familiar feelings for Liverpool. Falling short at the final hurdle, feelings of inadequacy. Was there a curse on Liverpool that not even Klopp could lift? Change is a huge theme when it comes to Jurgen Klopp's time at Liverpool, and in terms of making those changes, he needed players on the pitch that embodied his fighting spirit to put an end to those kind of defeats. So in the summer of 2016, 3 players were brought in that would have an untold effect on the team's performance. But it needs to be said that there wasn't much hype about this at the time. When rivals Manchester United, Chelsea and Manchester City were shopping around at Europe's top clubs for their signings, Liverpool, well, they were shopping in a completely different market. Sadio Mane was signed from Southampton. They'd finished 6th that year. Joel Matip signed from Schalke, who'd finished 5th that year. Gini Wijnaldum signed from Newcastle, who had been relegated that last season. And whilst these signings were needed to give Klopp the energy he needed on the pitch, they weren't met with that much hype, and the jury was still out on them and Klopp. But then came the opening day of the 2016-17 season, where Liverpool terrorised Arsenal in a game that finished 4-3, but Liverpool never looked in doubt. And it was new signing Sadio Mane that scored to make it 4-1 to Liverpool. But the story of this transfer window doesn't end there. Klopp allowed Christian Benteke, Joe Allen and stalwart Martin Skrtel to all leave the club. The intent was there and the building process could not be stopped. The 2016-17 season was the real year of progress for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. They secured Champions League football. Klopp's style of play was being indoctrinated by the players. The signs were there. They took a step closer to the league title Klopp wanted so badly in his first 4 years, but they were by no means done. And what happened next in the Klopp story it's the most important part yet. Sakho and Lucas Leiva were let go. Origi sent out on loan, but the incomings this year were again symbolic of the Klopp building process. Andy Robertson in from Hull, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain from Arsenal, and most importantly, Mohamed Salah from AS Roma. But what did all these players have in common? They had all faced rejection at one point in their careers. Robertson being let go from Celtic at a young age, Mo Salah being lambasted by Mourinho at Chelsea, and Oxlade-Chamberlain not being believed good enough to play centre midfield at Arsenal on a consistent basis. But Klopp was building an environment that meant that previous rejections were never going to be held against you, and in fact contributed positively to a sense of purpose and strong mentality at Liverpool. And this is where the mantra of mentality monsters began to form. That rejection being turned into a strength, and that need to prove people wrong perpetuated by Klopp, but also the fans of Liverpool Football Club and the culture that surrounds the city of Liverpool. Embracing that feeling of us against them.
This could be a really special day if you want, and if you work for it, and if you're patient enough. He's telling us how to be fans, and we were receptive to it.
2017-18 was Klopp's third season, and it was where we began to see the vision. He now had a 45% win rate against top 6 clubs, with 9 wins, 9 draws, and only 2 defeats as part of the record. The ideology of being underdogs was rife, yet oh so powerful within the team. Proving themselves and wanting to be feared was the mantra instilled into the players. The front three of Salah, Firmino and Mane, it was starting to earn a reputation. It was fearsome. The fear in Pep's tone when speaking about Liverpool's attack was a sign of things to come, as he knew something was happening at Liverpool and it was never going to be good for him or Man City. It was the first precursor to that rivalry between Klopp and Pep.
Him, Mane and Firmino, all three, they are almost unstoppable.
But despite the attacking quality that Liverpool had, there were still defensive problems. During this period, Klopp faced criticism over his tactics and whether he was able to coach a team to defend. These questions seemingly irritated Klopp to the point where he said he could write a book about defending. And whilst the answers weren't from a book, it came in the shape of one person. A person that would single-handedly transform Liverpool's defence into one of the best and most competent backlines in the league. But for this transfer to happen, Liverpool needed the money. So out went Coutinho for a record-breaking fee. This felt important at the time. Not only was Klopp ready to allow a player that had put Liverpool on his back several times in the past to leave, but he proved to that group that individualism is never as important as a team-led approach. This game will be known and identified for years to come as the day that the Klopp versus Pep rivalry was born. Liverpool beat Manchester City 4-3 at Anfield, but the subcontext to this game is what truly makes it special. Salah, Mane and Oxlade-Chamberlain all scored, and of course were all players brought in by Klopp. Manchester City were pretty much untouchable at the time, and this team went on to become centurions. But Liverpool had found a way. The belief was there. The David versus Goliath mantra was fully immersed into Klopp's players, and they now had something tangible that they could hold on to in their pursuit of winning a title and becoming the best. But there were also other things to focus on by this point. Of course, Liverpool were in the Champions League, and who did they face? That's right, Manchester City. Anfield midweek Champions League quarter-final. Famous Anfield European nights had been thin in recent years, but this was about to be different. 3-0 to Liverpool, quickly. And guess who the scorers were? Salah in the 12th minute, Oxlade-Chamberlain in the 20th, and Mane in the 31st minute. Liverpool had dismantled Manchester City after half an hour, and the fear of Anfield away was back in full force. But then the second leg comes around very, very quickly, and Manchester City take the lead almost immediately through Gabriel Jesus. Man City then score again, but it's offside. Bit of a wobble for Liverpool, but they then find some control in the game. And they come away 2-1 winners on the night and 5-1 winners on aggregate. Pep was sent off and sent to the stands whilst Liverpool progressed through. The balance of power was teetering on the edge for Manchester City, and Pep knew it. Next up, Roma. After a 5-2 win in the first leg, it seemed like a spot in the final was all but confirmed. And whilst Roma fought to a 4-2 win in the second leg, the damage was already done and Liverpool progressed 7-6 on aggregate. The final beckoned. Liverpool faced the challenge of a serial winner in Real Madrid. Liverpool faced the task of a team that knew their quality, had superstars, but more importantly, knew how to win. And for Klopp, this was an all too familiar feeling. His Dortmund side in 2013 had come up against a Bayern Munich side with all the same qualities, and that ended in defeat, and so did the final in Kyiv. Was Klopp just a nearly man? Was he cursed? What had to change? This team was clearly world class in almost every position. But enough was enough. Now was the time to win. By the start of the 18-19 season, Klopp had been in charge for 1,039 days and still didn't have a trophy. Something needed to be different. So what was different this season? Well, Klopp had proved that adding quality in singular positions could fix a lot of problems. In came Alisson, the goalie they had actually knocked out in the semi-finals of the Champions League in the previous season. So for the first time, it felt like there was not an obvious weakness in the team, something that Liverpool had been starved of. Now, surely the addition of a goalkeeper couldn't change that much, could it? The Premier League campaign of that year is still iconic to this day, but for the wrong reason really if you're a Liverpool fan, because the 97 points that Liverpool put up would have been enough to win 25 of the previous 28 Premier League seasons, and still is to this day the most points ever totaled not to win the league. So now we've got 1,312 days with Klopp in charge and still no trophy. But the season wasn't done when the last Premier League match finished, was it? You know that, don't you? It's the good bit, here it comes. But to appreciate this, we need to go back 1 week to when Barcelona arrived at Anfield with a 3-0 lead and 1 foot already in the final. The best player in the world and of all time, let's be honest, played for this Barcelona team. So what chance did Liverpool have? But things started to change at half-time with the introduction from Klopp of Gini Wijnaldum. He came on at half-time and things began to change. The Klopp-era players showed how they were changing the culture at the club. Matip and Van Dijk made a total of 8 tackles and interceptions between them, whilst Alisson made 5 massive saves to deny Messi twice, Coutinho, Suarez and Alba. But defending would only get you so far when chasing that much of a deficit. That was until
Liverpool 3-0. Corner taken quickly, Origi! Unbelievable!
That goal took this Liverpool side under Klopp to their second Champions League final. And this time, it was against Tottenham in Madrid. This was the test. Liverpool were expected to win. 97 points they totaled, 26 more than Tottenham. This was the moment for the players to become immortalised and woven into the fabric of the tapestry that is Liverpool Football Club. And Klopp watched on as they won the Champions League, and the trophy counter was finally reset to 0. But this was just the beginning. Liverpool kicked things off by winning the Super Cup against Chelsea in August and earning a spot at the Club World Cup, a trophy that arrived on Merseyside shortly after. The season must have felt like a blur at times with how many big wins there were, but here are just a few of the memorable moments. Beating Aston Villa 2-1 after being 1-0 down in the 86th minute, beating Man City 3-1 at Anfield. Liverpool won 11 of their first 12 games. On Boxing Day, they thrashed Leicester City 4-0, who were their closest challengers at that point. And this was significant, as it was the largest winning margin of teams starting the day in first and second since Man City beat Man United 6-1 famously. Liverpool win the title.
For Liverpool, back on top in England.
Liverpool finish on 99 points. That's 18 points clear of Manchester City, and Pep's fears from 2 years ago had finally been realised. Liverpool win the league in ultimately the strangest circumstances possible. But that's not what mattered. Klopp's promise of bringing the title to Anfield had been made a reality. The 4-year goal he set had been realised. 5 years technically, sure, but 4 full seasons with Klopp in charge. Liverpool and Klopp had dethroned England's untouchables, the team that stopped them winning the league the previous year. Revenge had been dished out. Other trophies quickly followed: the Community Shield, League Cups in 2022 and 2024, the FA Cup in 2022, 8 trophies in 9 years. A period of time where they had to battle against one of the best teams, if not the best team, in history. And to still walk away with this haul of trophies, actually on reflection, pretty remarkable. Success is a huge part of football for many. Sometimes it feels like for the few. But also, heartbreak is a little bit more popular and probably means just as much, if not more, to all football fans. Because it's often about the journey. Football often becomes an escape from life and a means of avoiding the pain of the world, allowing yourself to just focus on those 90 minutes. And when a figurehead of your club decides it's time to leave, it feels like every drop of pain in the world arriving at your doorstep all at once. But this time, football can't be a means of escape. Instead, it's a constant reminder. And when it's a personality that is that powerful, that has to be excruciating. The highs of winning the league and all those trophies, and some of the lows from the following season, the pain in Kyiv, the woe of Paris, and the 97 points that were never awarded, feel like drops in the ocean compared to the pain of the man who gave the fans all of those moments leaving. Klopp has often said that he feels like a stepfather to the players, but what he didn't realise at the time was that he was actually becoming a father figure to the entirety of the club and those connected with it. But ultimately, he walks away as a hero. A hero who he himself has confessed that he doesn't care about legacy and he was always there to do a job. But when you look at what others say about him, the word legacy can't be avoided. And with these quotes, we come back to Klopp's very first interview. And with that, I think we've got our answer.
It's not so important what people think when you come in. It's much more important what people think when you leave.